Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Dipesh Shrestha, and you are listening to the Decade podcast. Today, we have Abish Shakya here with us, and he is the organizer of Kathmandu Climate Save, who started his activism journey with Anonymous for the Voiceless. He's a master student of international cooperation and development from Midwestern University. Welcome to the podcast, Abhistai.
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Dipesh. Thank you for having me here. So I guess I'll start a little bit about what Kathmandu Climate Save is, because that's where I'm mostly involved in at the moment. So Kathmandu Climate Save is a part of the Save movement. Save movement, it's a organization, a group that works on, especially on animal on welfare for animals. We have about 914 chapters internationally. So it's divided into three parts. There's the animal save that works entirely on animals. There's the health save that talks about the impacts of consuming animals on your health. And then there's the climate save movement. Climate save movement. So Kathmandu Climate Save is one of the 100 and, is one of the 186 climate save groups in the world, which is based in 48 countries. So yeah, right here, out here, the main intention of Kathmandu Climate Save and the Climate Save movement is to make people aware about impacts of animal agriculture. Actually, we want to end it, and besides that, we also want to green the earth. Plant, make sure that the trees are up there, make sure that everything's really good out there, to make sure there's a good climate conditions, and also to phase out fossil fuels.
The state of climate crisis has been pretty well discussed over the media nowadays, right? And there has been lots of people talking about what we can do about it. And recently we had the Amazon rainforest fire as well. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, internationally, the Save movement, it's been very vocal about the Amazonian forests, especially the main reason why the climate Save movement is after the Amazonian forest, trying to protect it, is because Brazil, as a country, it's been very much rigorously involved in deforesting the Amazon forest. What they're doing is they're cutting down the trees. Not just cutting, they're burning the trees. They're cutting down everything. It's affecting the wildlife very badly. And all this is so that they can grow more crops. And so these crops can be grown not to feed the humans, but to feed the animals, and so that we can feed on those animals. So this is and the state of the human rights crisis is also big out there, because lots of activists get killed. And think about it, it's been going on since forever. I think it started around 2012 when the rampant deforestation of the Amazons began. But only in 2019 did the world actually know that this was going on. If it wasn't for a big, like there's like a breaking headline outside an international community, a lot of people wouldn't have known about it. So that's like so many years going on. So people are still trying to hide the impacts of animal agriculture. Whenever you see the news, and then they say that every forest that's been being burned, this, or they say that it's for agriculture. They do not say that it's for animal agriculture. They do not say that what's actually happening is they're trying to burn the forest so that we can feed the animals. Because like when you say agriculture, people obviously say, of course, yeah, it's we need to feed ourselves. But now what we're really trying to do is we're trying to show that, okay, this is what's happening. So it's for animal agriculture, this is for livestock, this is for raising the livestocks, and you can do without it. And one of the things that Kathmandu Climate Save, we're also trying to do is educate people about everything that happens, all the environmental impacts that's going on. Also, we're also trying to say that, like whenever we see some packaged food in Nepal, especially when I'm talking about the meat, if you see some packaged meat, there's a high chance that these products, they're coming from another country. So we are also in the global network, we're also a part of the global food chain. So we are importing stuff. So we might also be the one of those who are indirectly contributing to this rainforest fire, because we are demanding for these meat, which might have come from Brazil. So yeah, this is something that's been being expressed very vocally, and also this is something I'm trying to make people aware about. And of course, there are other things that Kathmandu Climate Save also talks about. So just like the impacts of even just consuming animal products, especially on the environment, because let's think about what's needed when you want to raise livestock. First of all, you need some land, and you need some land for one to raise the crops to feed the animals, and two to raise the animals itself. So now these animals, they consume about 80% of all the agriculture crops that's grown in this planet. So it means that all the other fruits and vegetables that we're eating, that's only 20% of what we eat, and 80% goes to the animals, and then we eat the animals. Now you could say that, okay, maybe if meat was a staple food and then that would be enough, maybe you could say that, okay, environmentally it's viable, but that only contributes to only 18% of the calories that we eat, which means there's like 78% of all our calories we're getting it already from the plants, which took only 20% land, agriculture land. And now there's so much excess that we can take it out, but still we're going for it because we are habituated for meat. So when you're growing them, there's the food that we need, there's a lot of water that we need, and there's a lot of fertilizers that you need to use for these crops. So the thing about the fertilizers is it produces nitrogen and nitrous gases, and these gases are greenhouse gases, and this will affect the temperature rises on our planet. And then there's the pesticides that's also used, and all the chemicals that you use, they will go downstream. They will be washed away, and then will pollute the water. There's a lot of waste that is produced from these animals. You might think that these wastes go and get recycled and then you can use it for biogas and stuff, but no, think about the number of animals. Like it's about estimated that there's about 70 billion land animals. So there's a lot of waste that's being produced, and no, it is not being used as properly to make biogases, or be used for manure, because that's way too much. And our major argument is the methane gas that's produced. So methane is another very potent greenhouse gas, which comes out from animal agriculture, from their waste, from their in the livelihood, you know. So we're trying to make people aware that, okay, there's a huge contribution animal agriculture has on the environment, and how this is directly connected to the rainforest. And also, this is something that we can curb in our daily life, because like, I know you've been vegan for quite some time, and I've been vegan for 1.5 years, and we know that it's very easy. It might get a little sticky, but it's really just a situation it's just a situation that we are put in, that's more uncomfortable than actually the diet itself. So I think that's something I want to encourage more people, try to make them aware, because of course it's difficult. I'm also not a perfect person, and I know that there are many things that I also can do to contribute to the environment, but I'm trying to make people aware that, okay, so this is something as well, and you can cut down on a lot of these emissions, a lot of these pollutions, a lot of these extractions, by simply cutting meat and dairy.
It's a public information that 91% of Amazon rainforest destruction is due to animal agriculture, especially
Yes.
animal husbandry, animal raising, right? And cutting down on those animal products will really help the environment. And I've been thinking about what's going on around the world right now, like the global temperature that's been rising, and the natural disasters keeps on increasing. Like their intensity is increasing, and not just Amazon rainforest, the Australian fire also. And there's lots of places having extreme rainfall and also drought at the same time, which is not natural, right? And I've been thinking about this stuff, that we have used so many of hashtag pray for thing this last year, right? Last 2 years, which never happened before. So we can't deny that climate change is not happening right now. Yeah. And it's important to spread awareness about this sort of things, information on this topic, when most of the politicians, big politicians, who talk that they don't believe that climate change is happening.
Yeah.
Like do you have something to say to the people who want to actually know the truth?
So this is basically what's basically happening is people are putting profits over the planet. Let's take like like mentioned the Australian fires, right? So something that happened that very disheartened me very much was when 10,000 camels were shot down. Because people did not have enough drinking water, and then the camels drink a lot of water. So in this case, what I would like to make people aware is something that I studied in school, and I was amazed. That was that there's more sheep population in Australia than there's human population, and these sheep they're being raised for wool. Maybe they've been raised for meat as well. And instead of blaming human investments and the corporations involved, who are in this industry, because compare the millions of sheep to 10,000 camels, and then what they decide to do is they just decide to shoot the 10,000 camels. So here we see that people are seeing these domesticated animals, as their property. And when instead they could say that, like, okay, they could have thought about it and said that, okay, we'll have a lot of resource constraints if we had so much animals. What they're actually doing is they're just shooting out all the animals that's in the wild, and all these free living animals. Come on, we share this planet with all these animals. For something I really want to let people know is, I want people to be very open about their mind. Like, I personally, I watched this series called Cosmos, and because of this I was aware about a lot of things, just like how old the planet is, how old the universe is, how many years it's been that this planet has been formed, and how, like, take something like Mars. There's no atmosphere. It's a planet, but there's no atmosphere. And how, on Earth, because of all the luck we had, we slowly and slowly, in 4.5 billion years, we formed this planet. This planet was formed, and then, it was a hot ball of fire, and then it cooled down. And how slowly there was singular cellular animals, and there was multicellular animals, and how the algae could make their own food, and how we all came together. So I see a cycle. I see how we are so connected with each other. I see why these animals exist. I see why these plants exist. There's a lot of variety of things that we see. And then when you understand that we came through the same process as these animals and plants, and there's so much common between us, and also the fact that their extinction means our extinction, if you want to look at it in a selfish way. So when you understand these things, you actually feel that this planet is alive. You actually feel that we have to have love and care for all the things, all the living beings, and even the non-living beings. Like, like, I don't want to disrupt the pattern of the river. I don't want to disturb the pattern of, I want there to be snow on the mountains. I want the hills to be full of trees. I want I see the beauty in the planet, but I think people need to see that. And this is something, when you're studying this, and when you don't go out in nature, and or, like, explore, or when you don't have someone who's enlightened, was awake, and come here to explain these things, you will not know these things. Because when you grow up in society, you think that, okay, so, okay, class 10 some SLC, so you study SLC, and then you go to college, and you do this, and then you work, and you earn, and then you make a family, and then you grow old and die. No, there's so much more to the universe. I think there's also, it sounds like a philosophical thing, but that you really need to understand what your purpose of life is. Like, why I say that is, we need to understand we coexist, and then we have to maintain this balance, because, because it's a plan for everyone. And then something that's very much important for me is empathy. To really understand why we are here. So that's something it's much more difficult to explain it to people right away when in a short conversation, because, like, one of the reasons the climate change is happening is, like I said, it's because for the profits. Is people are taught about economic growth right now. Because I'm also studying a student of development, I look into things like degrowth or a circular economy. And a lot of these things are, it's more about returning to a traditional life system where we live in harmony with the, okay, even with the animals. We live in harmony. Let's think about a rural life where everything is so peaceful and so harmonious. And they were actually okay with what they had. But then when you say that, when you bring things like development into the picture, when you bring economic growth in the picture, it kind of makes you unhappy and makes you want to pursue bigger things. It'll start building dams for electricity. Of course, that was necessary for us, in some way. But then we look into development, and then we're trying to catch up really quickly, and then we have all these devastations. We make roads everywhere, and then you cut down trees to expand these roads. And then, like, the development process and everything, it's really bad. And then all the people who are in charge, in these development projects, they don't really uh, see into that perspective, that, like, we might not have a planet to live if we keep on going with development as it is. Not just the like increase in temperature, but we're going to lose a lot of our history. By history I mean also these plant species and animal species, because also like climate change. Because of climate change, thousands of species are dying like every day. They're disappearing forever. So we need to look into the bigger picture, and the climate crisis is very big. So you can see it from very many perspectives, from the glaciers melting, or the solar ice cap melting. And like you said, the rain, it's become very unpredictable. Like there's some changes that's been usually being seen right now is the rainfall patterns are going very bad. The droughts are but still there, and we're seeing so many things like for natural activities as well. Let's say even using these lots of fertilizers and pesticides. Okay, at some point. Till some point we need it, because we have a big planet, and then we have to feed all the people. But then the way it's going, it's very unsustainable. So yeah, so it has me worried, but then still I have some hope that things will get better, because we need animal activists, we need environment activists, we need people even studying economics and trying to figure out a good economic system. But I think we're getting there some way, because at least now more people are aware, more people are willing to listen, and well, the climate strike movement, it also gives you some hope.
There's been a rise in global climate strikes, and it's been happening here in Kathmandu as well. So there's a group, the Fridays for Climate Nepal. I think that the main motive of strikes is to bring people in higher power to the knowledge that we as a generation are worried about our future and want them to make a conscious decision on how to take the development further, and how to protect our environment. We have been facing with drought here in Kathmandu for several years now, which was not a case 50 years or 100 years ago. So due to the unsystematic development, our generation is the one who is facing the negative impact. And if we keep on doing the same thing, our future generation might have to face consequences even worse than this. So we can rest hope on Fridays for Climate Nepal. But first, can you elaborate on what this group does?
Fridays for Climate Nepal, it was formed after the second global climate strike in 2019. So the first global climate strike, and it was happening in September, the climate strike week. On the September week climate strike, what we saw was a lot of enthusiasts that were coming out, but we were coming out individually. And then let's say I know you, so I call you for my climate strike. And so that was all that was happening. And then of course at the end of the climate strike on September, on the final day was on September 27, we realized that there were four separate climate strikes going on in Kathmandu. Okay, I'm just saying about Kathmandu, all right? So this is all basically still limited to Kathmandu, Fridays for Climate Nepal. So after that, what we thought was every one of us, not just Kathmandu Climate Save, which was part of it, a lot of groups that were going on. What we thought was, okay, then if there are so many of us, like we are fighting for the same cause. We're fighting for it's a very big problem, and we shouldn't do this separately. If we cannot, we should get together and form a group, so that we can take these climate strikes and look for climate action. Find ways forward for climate action. So we got together. It was around November. It was around November, when we all got together, and then so all the people who were striking in different places, we got together, and we formed Fridays for Climate Nepal. So why we're putting this name Fridays in the group was we're trying to make sure that we'll dedicate one day of the week, every week, for the climate. So and then we were going strong, and then at first it was first of all, it was the main first event for climate for first event for Fridays for Climate Nepal was to get together for the climate strike. and which is okay. But then it was okay. What I'm saying it was okay was because I thought personally thought that, now that we're all together, we'd have lots and lots of like young enthusiasts coming out, because outside these movements are led by school students. Yes, we did have a lot of school students coming as well, but then of course our dream was to make sure that, like, we pack everything. Like, you see, like, there's like 100,000, like millions of people coming out on the streets in places like Germany and around the world, and then here it was just few hundreds of us. So we are just hoping for more, but anyway, so our main intention is to keep this movement going forward. And the thing is, when we got together with these groups, what he also found out was that there's a lot of problems. Like, let's say there's power shift in Nepal, where we're actually trying to let us know that there's fracking being going on. This fracking projects being proposed here. So by which means is they're trying to extract oil from Nepal, while the entire globe and people are trying to move away from fossil fuels. So we're starting this. It's going to be devastating for the environment. And then there's the groups like PAN. They're trying to say the Nisgard forest, and there's so many other groups, and we have their own issues. And we're trying to. So what we're doing is we're going to take turns, and because all these issues, there's environment issues, and we all need support. And I'm for everything that all these groups are standing for. So I'll be supporting them. They'll be supporting me. And of course, my as Kathmandu Climate Save, our main intention is to make people aware about the impacts of animal agriculture on the environment. So I'm trying to make people aware about that. So every Fridays you can, yeah, if you can join the Fridays for Climate Nepal group on Facebook, you'll see a lot of updates on, okay, what events will happening on Friday, or we're talking about all the issues that's coming out. Recently there was a very sad incident that happened when Dilip Mahato, he was a climate activist, was brutally murdered by the crusher companies. Were extracting sands and pebbles illegally from the rivers in Thanusha. So we have to stand for this. So Fridays for Climate Nepal is also trying to make sure that, okay, like, if someone needs a voice, we'll be there. Of course, that was something that we really want to do, is we want to make sure that more people are involved in this, that more people are more enthusiastic about this, about the climate issue, because this is a very very serious problem, and it's going to be irreversible. There's no way we can reverse this, I don't think, in our lifetime. We don't think. But then what we can do is we can try to contain the damage that's being done. So yeah, we're hoping that more people join the climate revolution, more people will be aware, more people will come out for themselves. Yeah, so that's the uh, that's our hope.
So you told about the fracking that's been going here in Nepal,
Yeah,
and I guess lots of people don't know about it. And even the Nisgat project,
yeah,
which was kept on hold,
yeah,
it's been started, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, in some manner it's been started.
yeah,
And also with the topic of the murder of the activist
Dilip.
Dilip.
Yeah,
Yeah. So right now it is very I think it's very important for this generation to speak up more on this topic. Yeah, we can see one face rising up nowadays,
yeah,
Greta Thunberg.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Friday for Climate Nepal has some inspiration from her as well,
yeah.
her strike as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we can say that the recent strikes, they were inspired by Greta Thunberg. But what you also have to know is the climate strike movement. What you also have to know is the climate movement started in Nepal from way back in 2006. Okay, so but then of course it was not as big then. Maybe even if I had seen it, I wouldn't have been serious about it then, because we didn't have a lot, because people hadn't taken this issue as seriously then. But then, like, later on, there were people like Al Gore and other politicians, and there were people like Al Gore and other scientists and politicians that were coming out. Some of them, not all, are coming out and raising these issues. But I just wanted to know that it started from there. So yeah, so there was a climate movement in Nepal. And like, and over the years, some of them are really good. There were big masses going out on rallies, just the way that we animal activists are going out and talking about veganism, about animal rights. Things were going on there. Like, it was still small, but then it was always here. So yes, we can say that we are very much inspired by that. So the one of the reasons we came out for these strikes were to make people aware about the things that's going on globally as well. So like uh, mm, like the COP conferences, the conference of parties. So it's an annual, it's an annual event where environmentalists and politicians and all the people working on the stakeholders, they get together to talk about how we can tackle this issue. It started in 1995, COP. It started in 1995, and since then there's been some important agreements that's been made. It's like the Kyoto Protocol, which had happened, which said that it's the developed countries who are to blame for all these all the emissions and most of what's happening with climate change. And then there was the Paris Agreement, which set a limit that said that we should limit our temperature rise from way below 2 degrees Celsius on average. You might say that 2 degrees it's like little, but then it's actually going to be a huge impact. And then our aim is to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. um, but then of course, like this time, also like in 2019 itself, there was another COP which was supposed to happen in Chile, but it happened in Spain, in Madrid, and it was disrupted because a lot of people are unhappy with all the things that were going on, because people are still not trying to move away from carbon emissions. People are not, they're still trying to find their way out and try to delay things. So yes, there's a lot of things that's going on that's wrong. Politicians, they're favoring these small, sorry, the politicians, they're favoring corporations. It's very much a neoliberal society, by which I mean, it's the people who are in business. It's the big corporations that they're running everything that's going on. Like, businesses are even more powerful than the government in some ways, because that's how they influence elections, and there's corruption. And so there's a lot of things that it is actually a very big issue. It's also climate change, you can also say, is some way of political issues. But the thing is, we have to fight back, because I also used to think that, just in by individual activities, I can fix these problems. So I thought, like, okay, like if I stop eating meat myself, things will go well. But then no, because the corporations, they keep on bringing out advertisements, and they keep on saying that, we don't have enough protein. So when all this false information are out there, and when there's so limited time, we should go out on the street and talk about these things, right? This is something that Kathmandu Climate Save is also trying to do, and which is, I think, like, not just Kathmandu Climate Save, like every environmental organization should go out and bring their voice out, talk about fossil fuels, or talk about protecting their local resources. Like, there's also work on, there's also a phenomenon, like, called monoculture, by which we mean that, like, if you go to a restaurant, we'll be after burgers and pizzas, and we will lose our own identity. Think about all the people right now, like, I personally, I can speak better English than I can speak better Nevari, which is my mother language. I cannot write in Nevari. Why is this? It's because I felt that, there's more opportunities for me if I can learn English. But then of course we have to protect our identity as well, because when we're acting local and when we're following our traditional traditions, it's more sustainable. Just think about it, like, like, go back like 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Nepal was very sustainable. We wouldn't have been using all these plastics, and we have these vehicles. So okay, of course, maybe in some ways it's inconvenient as well, but when you go to the roots, when you follow our traditions, it's sustainable. And then when we have all this development, we'll also have a lot of trade, and a lot of unnecessary trade. It creates all these carbon emissions, and it's a rampant, like, resource extractions. Like, why is the Amazon being burned? It's being burned because we are demanding it. And there's also a lot of people who are supplying, who are trying to influence the demands and stuff. So yes, it's a big thing, and then it's a huge problem. But then, yeah, I think we'll get there slowly, because a lot of people are more aware about this now. And like groups like Climate Save and Fridays for Climate Nepal, we're trying to find solutions from our side to also make a systematic change, not just an individual change. Because the way we are going with this, business as usual, we're trying to limit temperatures to 2 degree till 1950, 2050. But with business as usual, it will go till 4.1 degrees. That's the estimate. So yeah, we really need to work on this, and hopefully we'll get there, and hopefully I can live past 30 years That's what we could say is like our deadline for now. We never know, because because of climate change, even phenomenon such as dengue entering Kathmandu last year. My whole family was affected by it. A lot of people I knew were affected by it, and it was terrifying. And we hear that, we've been told that if it happens a second time around, it will be more dangerous. So we know that, okay, we have a deadline, a fixed, maybe a fixed till until 2050, but then we can perish even earlier. So we really have to work on this. We have to work hard for this, and fight this. And because it's everybody's problem, somebody's always thinking that, some of them, a lot of them are not involved. And I really request everyone out there, who knows about this, to please find some ways in which you can contribute. Like, it could be consuming less meat and dairy, or it could be, driving electric, or even best trying to, cycle or use public vehicles, because we cannot go on with the way things are going. So, and then I also really hope that, like, people would really explore the things, like how we came to existence, and understand our connection with nature. So in this way, we can put less pressure on the planet. And, well, and, like, maybe you'll see your grandchildren then.